Hi, and welcome back to another season of Hear Me Roar. I'm one of your hosts, Angela Hardesty.
And I'm your other host, Kelsey Bond.
Well, today in the studio we have a wonderful production. We're going to be discussing stories from our personal lives and things that we've overcome as women. And later on we're going to have packages from Barbara Bates Smith, who came into the studio last week and portrayed the character Ivy Rowe. So we'll have that coming up after this commercial break.
Well, I just got out of class.
Ah!
Hey guys, there's a Halloween costume contest going on. You want to go?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Are you feeling helpless? Do you have a lack of motivation? Are you stressed out? We want to help you.
And welcome back to Hear Me Roar. All right, for our first segment, we're going to discuss a visitor we had this past week. We had Barbara Bates Smith, who portrays the character of Ivy Rowe in her stage version of the adaptation of the novel Fair and Tender Ladies by Lee Smith.
There's no relation there.
No relation, yeah.
That's
she stressed that she wasn't related to the author, but she might as well have been. How long has she been portraying Ivy Rowe?
She said that she was playing the character Ivy Rowe for 20 years.
20 years, yeah. She showed us her pamphlet. I wish we had it with us.
Oh God, she was so young when well, not so young, but she was a lot younger when she started out, and she's just a very colorful person. She was able to describe the character of Ivy Rowe, which is actually a novel that consists of letters from the character Ivy Rowe to her loved ones, like her sister, and it's just kind of a progress of her, like maturing from a young girl, and learning about sex, and then learning when she was older about issues in the coal mines.
Yeah, she's just a mountain woman growing up at the turn of the century. It was the turn of the 20th century, right? Like 1900s?
Yes, it was I believe it was the early 1900s.
I couldn't remember which century it was.
The package that we'll be introducing is going to consist of one of the monologues from when she was young. So we have that coming up right now.
Well, I'm Barbara Bates Smith, and I get to do the work of Lee Smith and her novel, Fair and Tender Ladies, which the stage version I call Ivy Rowe. And this is Jeff Stevens. You tell about what you do.
Jeff Siebens from Hillsville, Virginia, and I get to travel with Barbara adding musical accompaniment to her productions. And thank you for having us.
Does anybody have any questions about Lee Smith or anything, or should I? What I thought I would do is start with the first letter that's in the novel and is also in the play. And then I'll try to stop. I'll take one little excerpt from each major segment of the book and of the play. And then maybe there might be some comments or questions as we go along. I'll have to tell you first how I approach this, since it's a mountain woman's life story. I start at the end, and if there's a place like in a theater, if there's lighting, there's sort of a glow on stage, and I come on as the Ivy at the end of her life. She's got this stack of letters, and sometimes in a real theater I get to put them in a pot and burn them, and you see the smoke come up, and you hope that people are curious about what these letters were. And the rest of the play is like a flashback going through those letters that were burned. So that's the way I start. I started Ivy at the end, have these letters, burn them, the lights come up and the music comes up, and then we see Ivy when she starts, and that's what you see. She's starting to write a letter. September 12th. September 14th, 1912. Dear Haneke, my teacher, Miss Brown, says you will be my pen friend, and I must write to you about my family and culture. My mama says I was born with the century. I'm presently 12 years old. My mama ran off with my daddy when she was 15 from her fancy house in Rich Valley. And they set out in the dead of night for Sugar Fork on my daddy's horse, Lightning. And when they got here, it was morning. And Mama looked around, and she saw Sugar Fork sparkle in the sun like a lady's diamond necklace. And she saw Pilgrim Knob rise up behind the house and Blue Star Mountain beyond. And she see this big double cabin with the breezeway in between and the rosy bush by the front porch just covered with pink flowers. And my daddy turned to her and he said, Maud, it is what I have to give you. It is all I have. It'll do, John, is what she said. And there's never been nobody up here but us'uns. We grow near about all we eat, mostly corn, which will work you to death, especially now as Daddy's so poorly and has to lay down. It's a weakness that's come upon him from the heart. Farming is pretty work, Daddy used to say. He'd be plowing and he'd hold the plowed earth up next to his face. He loved how it smelled. And he'd say, don't this smell just like spring? And he would take us way up on the mountain in the wee early spring to tap a birch tree and get the sap. And he'd cut off a big piece of the bark for us to lick the insides. Tasted so sweet. And he'd say, now, Ivy, this is how spring tastes. This is the taste of spring. Of all my brothers and sisters, I love Sylvanie the bestest. She is so pretty, all silver-haired, like she was fotched up on the moon. We have slept in the same bed all our lives and done everything as one. It's like we was the same. I'm smart, though, and I go to school when I can, and I try to teach Sylvanie, but she can't learn. Mama said she had the brain fever as a baby. Lord, we have us some fun, though, sneaking off to have our play parties. I am the Princess Lucia. Sylvania is Princess Melissa Clarissa. And our big sister Beulah used to play with us sometime, and she'd be Miss Margaret White. Who knows where she got that name from?
And we're back. So that was fun to relive that.
Yeah, as you can see, we were definitely on the stage
in the studio
with her.
When she first started talking, I didn't know what to expect. Like, it'd been built up to she was going to be this
Mountain woman.
And she starts out her first letter as a child, talking about her sister and her life in the mountains.
The simple times of just living up on the mountain with her family. Now, you actually can relate to the character Ivy Rowe.
Yeah, and I'll discuss this a little bit later with my story, but how she talked about her sister Sylvanie. And she said that Sylvanie had brain fever when she was a baby, so she wasn't quite.
She was special needs.
Yes.
She was definitely
and
special
I have
needs.
A special needs little sister.
And do you have a connection with your sister like Ivy Rowe did with Sylvanie?
In a way, yes. I mean, my sister doesn't talk, so it's a little bit hard to get that connection with her, but you can definitely see the connection in her eyes when I see her every time. I miss her dearly right now. So.
And we'll definitely be looking forward to hearing that when we discuss our personal stories. But discussing this video, I felt that Ivy Rowe's character was so lively and she was just so animated, and I could taste the spring that she was describing in that monologue. It was just simply wonderful. I was very disappointed I didn't get to see her performance at the It was at the Folk Arts Center. Where she performed that. But we were very lucky to have her in the studio, and we're actually going to have a follow-up video that's going to be, I think, from as an adult. So we'll definitely have that coming up in just a little bit after this commercial break.
When you got some homework and you need a place to go. When you're working on a project and your computer is slow. There's a little place on campus that I think that you should know about. The first story of the library is what I'm talking about. Walk past Java City and then you will see the new commons area is where you should be. They got computers and printers, couches, tables and more. It's the perfect place to go for study time galore.
For students living both on and off campus, come check out the new POD store, located in Alumni Tower. POD store is a great way for students on campus to go grocery shopping without leaving campus, or for students looking for a place to spend flex dollars on drinks, snacks, and supplies. Remember, if you're by Alumni Tower, visit the POD store to the right of the catwalk for products on demand when you want them.
Hi, welcome back. This segment we're going to be discussing our own personal stories and things that we have overcome in our lives. Just to say a little bit about myself, I am the youngest of 3 sisters. My mother kind of raised us as a single mother, and my mother actually overcame some adversity. She was born in the early 50s, and she actually became a doctor right in the middle of, the second wave of women's liberation. So that was a very wonderful triumph for her. But my triumph came when I was about 5 years old and I was diagnosed with ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I was just a little ball of energy and I couldn't pay attention. I kind of didn't really do well in school, especially in elementary school. But I was very fortunate to have special treatment from my professors. I was able to get special treatment on assignments, so that way I was able to keep up with my class. I never got held behind. But I had a lot of struggles with making and keeping friends just because I was so energetic and talkative. And I didn't react well to the medication. When I was younger, it was Ritalin, not Adderall. And it just made me feel lifeless, and I didn't like it. I didn't feel myself, and I had to take counseling. But I overcame that, which a lot of people still today struggle with, and they, almost become addicted to, the medication. And I was very lucky to be enrolled in programs that involved cooking and theater. And that was something for me to channel my energy into, and it helped me to be the person I am today. I, broadcast for the radio station a couple days a week and host the show. I got to host this last semester, and it's definitely molded me to be the person I am today. And I have really good grades, so I'm very proud of that. So that was something I was able to overcome, and that was my story. Kelsey, talk about your story.
Well, the purpose of our segment with our stories is to tie into Ivy Rowe and just how women in general have so many stories to tell. I, for one, I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. I've lived there all my life. I'm the oldest of two siblings. I have my little sister, Lindsay, who, as I mentioned earlier, is a special needs child. She is currently 18 years old, and she doesn't talk. We don't know why. And growing up with her, it was an experience, we'll say that much. It was always, I won't say it's always been fun, but Lindsay definitely brings something to my life that wouldn't be here if she wasn't here. And she's shaped me as a person, really. I find with her, I've been incredibly patient, because dealing with someone who is a little bit different than you, it's a challenge a lot of the times. And I applaud my parents for how well they have raised both of us and made it to where we don't see the differences that much in Lindsay. It is kind of, it's like, I don't think my childhood was any different than anyone else's.
You didn't feel like you had a lot more responsibility?
I did a little bit. I had the typical responsibilities as a child, like get good grades, keep up your schoolwork, watch after your sister when the parents go out after I got older. And I think dealing with my sister did give me more of an edge to deal with other things that happened in our family. When I was 11, my mom was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer. And throughout all that, our family just had to pick up the pieces as we usually did, and whenever anything came our way, and just move on forward. And looking back, I don't remember a lot of that time. my parents did a very good job with keeping everything normal for me and my sister. And my mom is one of the strongest women I know. Throughout her whole trials with cancer and chemo and radiation and all these other medical stuff, she just kept on going. She never let it bother her. I mean, she's told me a story a couple times about how in her first chemo treatment, one morning getting up for school, getting me and Lindsay ready for school, my sister was sick, and my mom felt awful. It had been a couple days after she had her first chemo treatment, and she was nauseous. She felt like she was going to just collapse, and she got me off and got me ready to go to school. I was in 6th grade, and we live within walking distance of the school, so she sent me on my way to walk by myself. For the first time, she actually had a neighbor watch out for me because she was worried.
See, that's very hard. You were still growing up when your mother battled that. I believe that it was my senior year of high school when my mother let me know that she had leukemia, but she caught it. You know, my mother is a doctor. She knew to look out for it just because, you know, she'd struggled with a lot of health issues, and so she knew to look out for it. And I was surprised, though, when she told us that she had it, because I didn't see it coming. And my mother, like, you know, when you think of cancer, everybody thinks the worst. No one ever really thinks of it as something that a lot of people overcome. But, you know, my mother is my rock. She's my foundation. She's raised me and my 3 sisters, like me and my older sisters, and, you know, put us all through school. And, you know, when she was sick and going through chemo treatments, just like what you were describing, your mother being sick, but me being old enough to know what's going on, it was just so hard.
How old were you when your mother was diagnosed?
I was 18.
18.
So it's really hard to think that, oh God, you know, you think your parents will die when you're a lot older, and, you know, she's not going anywhere. But then I had no idea. So it was just a very emotional time for me because I had the knowledge to freak out. You said that your mom was strong enough and you didn't have to worry about it.
When she told us she had breast cancer, it was kind of a surreal experience. I actually wrote a couple papers about it in like high school and stuff. Briefly, the brief version of the story is that she comes in on a Saturday morning after she had an exam, and she came in and told us that they had caught something on the mammogram, and she said she had breast cancer, and both me and my dad lost it. That was the second time in my life I'd seen my dad cry. And my mom, I never saw her cry. Never.
But she's come through it.
She has. She's been clean for 7 years now.
Well, that's just a courageous story. Your family has overcome a lot of problems, so that's just wonderful to hear that as a happy ending, and hopefully we won't have a lot of problems to come after this. Well, after this commercial break, we're actually introing it now. Tara Sampson, who is a woman, and I don't know if she's a student on campus. I think someone said that she was, but she's a fiddler for the Kentucky Center for Traditional Music.
And we also have another Ivy Road clip, don't we?
We just showed that, didn't we?
Did we?
No, we did not. I'm just kidding. We're going to show another Ivy Road clip.
And then Tara Sampson.
Right now. So here you go.
This letter now to Sylvania. My dearest Sylvania, the mine fell in and I got married. Here's how it happened. I was working at the store pricing baby clothes. September 20th, I will never forget that date, 1926. I had just drunk a cup of coffee and I was talking with Miss Joines. She was complaining how her mother won't eat any food but white food, like white bread and mashed potatoes and grits. The whistle blew. She stopped talking with her mouth wide open, and I put the baby clothes up on the counter. The whistle had never blown like that between shifts in all the years I'd been at Diamond. But it blew, and we all knew what it meant. Nobody said a word. I walked out of the store and started up the hill home. The whistle kept blowing and blowing like a nightmare. From houses all over Company Hill, people let out running, and cars started up. Then school let out, and kids poured out of the schoolhouse door and started up the hill, or joined those walking and running to the mine. A line like a colorful snake going up the mine road behind the store and out of sight around the side of Diamond Mountain. and the whistle finally stopped, the silence was awful. And then Jolie come running up. Mama, what is it? Is it a fire? And I said, oh, honey, don't you know it's trouble at the mine? I'm afraid it's big trouble. And then her pretty little face went sad, and she asked, is Martha's daddy down in there? And I said, yes, honey, he is. And then I got her to scratching pretty pictures in the dirt with a stick, and I swept off the yard real good. And then I swept it off again. Oh, Sylvania, you would not believe what a beautiful day it was. My mind fluttered around and around like the butterflies in the Queen Anne's lace up on Sugar Fork, not landing on something. Not landing on something. What? I made some brownies for Jolie and some soup beans for anybody who might want to eat them later, and finally I couldn't stand it any longer. I said, come on, Jolie, we're going to the mine. And we started out down the hill at 4 o'clock, me and Jolie holding hands. We passed the store. Some people were singing.
Rock of ages, clap for me. Let me hide myself in thee.
And we're back. So that was our other Ivy Rowe story.
Quite a cliffhanger.
It
You
was,
never got
it
to
was.
find out what happened when she reached the mine. She said to find out you had to go to the Folk Art Center to hear the end of it, which I did not get to do because I
And
had night
didn't-
class.
I didn't either. I couldn't go. Actually, couldn't find it either. I didn't know where the Kentucky Center was. I'm not from around here.
It's the Folk
So,
Art
Folk
Center,
Art Center.
just off US 60. But it was very emotional, that one monologue about the issue that happened with the coal mines. And before she had went into that, she discussed how that can affect people today in this region. There's a lot of people that still work in the coal mines, and there are issues that happened. Was it the Chilean miners, that got trapped not too long ago. So that's definitely something that hits home, and I was getting a little emotional when I was on stage with her when I was listening to that.
I know, I was on the edge of my seat, and I was like, what's going to happen next? And we never got to find out.
Well, Barbara Bates Smith she really lived that character, and for everyone that got to experience that, definitely got to feel what it must have felt like to be a woman growing up in Appalachia.
And it's amazing how she can portray that character after doing it for so long, because she mentioned that she wasn't from the mountains.
She said she was from South Carolina. Or something like that, so she wasn't even near there. But now coming up, we actually have that clip that I was talking about earlier, Tara Sampson, who's the fiddler for the Kentucky Center for Traditional Music. And she's just apparently a very outstanding woman on campus, and someone chose to do a profile about her. So we have
here's our
that
profile.
Yep, right now.
When you're thirsty, are you going to depend on a crumpled old dollar? Remind yourself to always bring your Eagle card. Hey dude, I think you're forgetting something. Always keep beaker bucks loaded onto your Eagle card just in case. It's the fastest way to make all of your on-campus purchases.
5-time Pennsylvania state fiddling champion and international performer Tara Sansom of the Kentucky Center for Traditional Music at Morehead State University is a musician and educator, but she is also something more, a story of inspired success. When asked why she chose to play music, Tara said she feels it's what she is meant to do.
I think everybody's given different gifts and strengths, and I think that we all need to use those.
I also asked Tara if she feels that there are prejudices against today's female musicians.
If you look at the realm of musicians in all genres, I think there are just as many successful female artists as male artists, and I personally don't think that there are. Just like anything else, if you work hard and if you're diligent and can prove yourself and be productive, I think those are all elements of being successful.
Realizing her purpose in life and working to achieve her goals has brought Tara inspired success.
And welcome back after that wonderful clip about Tara Sansom. And have we had people from Kentucky Center for Traditional Music on the show before? Maybe not our show, but I want to say on Morehead Today we've had them play.
Yes,
before.
we've definitely had them as a musical guest on MSU TV.
Yes,
and
they're
the talent
amazing.
there. Oh my goodness. I guess it's bluegrass.
Yeah.
That's the type of music that is. I never really listened to it because, I'm kind of a city girl, but I love that music, and she's very talented. So that was a treat to be able to hear about her.
All right, and for we're almost out of time, so for next episode, we are going to have 3 new hosts with us.
Yeah, we will not be joining you guys next, it's not next week like normally. It's going to be on October 19th, and the hosts are going to be Cindy, Ray, and Crystal, who are some Asian female students that are in our women's issues class with Dr. Andaloro. And
they're all from China. So they're going to be discussing Asian women stereotypes in the media, in Western media, and possibly in Eastern media as well.
And they'll probably share some of their experiences growing up in China and how that transitioned to coming here to the States.
So I'm excited. I definitely will be tuning in.
Yeah, I'll definitely be here, not in the studio, but I'll be off-site watching it, definitely, cheering them on.
They probably will have some very interesting stories, like ours and like Ivy Rowe.
Yeah, their stories are going to have a lot of probably tradition. Like when they were talking, I know that they're probably going to be talking about their grandmother's influence on their lives. And I think it was Cindy that was talking about how her grandmother taught her how to make dumplings, because that was something that she would have to know. So that's a little teaser probably for that next episode. So definitely tune in. It'll be a big treat.
And I really enjoyed this episode.
It was great to be back in the studio. I'm going to be sad that we're not hosting full-time this semester.
But we'll have definitely an interesting cast of people for our season for Hear Me Roar.
Yes, definitely tune in this season. And thank you for tuning in today for Hear Me Roar. I'm your host, Angela Hardesty.
And I'm Kelsey Bond, as always.
You have a great night.